thought she'd be here a little while.
Right.
Start time, so I'm gonna give her a minute or two.
Good morning, all. We are going to wait a moment or two on our attorney. She had a conflict this morning, but there is an action item or two on here that I would like her involvement in. So we will see if she's here, and if not, there we go. Alex.
Dawn's on by phone.
She's on my phone. So with that, I'll convene the meeting. If we could do a roll call, please.
McIntyre? Here. Peter?
Here.
DeCook?
Here, we have a quorum. If you kindly rise for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With respect to agenda deletions or changes, I'm going to, in lieu of pulling item 6 today, I'm just going to have discussion of dispatch supervisor role. So the board can discuss that role at action item number 6. With that, is there any other agenda deletions or corrections? We do a very brief agenda today, although it is substantive in nature. First off is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are enacted by one motion. Claims have a claims figure of $128,365.72 with no fringes. B, minutes to approve, December 20, 2021 closed meeting, December 21, 2021 regular meeting, December 21, 2022 work session. C, approve employee transfer of Tammy Jorgensen from the auditor's office to the recorder's office, full-time effective January 3, 2022. And D, approve abatement of mobile homes taxes pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 435.25 on VIN number 20270 in the amount of $129 plus all accrued interest. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 on our agenda is the public hearing set for 9:35. I have 9:33. So we will, David's here. We will take a brief pause for 90 seconds.
Good, how are you doing? Morning.
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Peter,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye. We are in public hearing.
So I'll just give a brief explanation of the project. The county originally did a site selection process back in 2011. Since then, the roads have been paved around that area. It's functioned as our main site, as in stockpiling materials and having some form of fuel facility out there in the meantime. The county then in 2014 spent additional funds to grade the site. So throughout this development process over the span of a decade, we're now to finally bidding out a new shop site facility for secondary roads. It's still a central location south of town, but it'll help us better serve the rural population. We won't be running in and out of the city, taking 10 or 15 minutes every day to do that, and it'll provide more functionality both for our employees and maintenance and repair of equipment. The plans have been on the website the last 3 or so years now that spell out about 98% of what the scope of this project is. You know, we might have moved a closet here or there in the meantime, but they've been up for review for quite a long time. And the estimated opinion of probable cost for this project at its current phase is a high range of $6,445,000 roughly, and the low range is $5,830,000. So kind of in the middle is around 6.2 million. Thank you.
And David, can you speak to the date and what's all in our packet here? I've got a page here, but can you discuss the bids that came in, the range?
Yeah, the bids that came in have a range of $6,060,000 to just over 6.8 million, which on item number 3, I'll read through all those in detail.
And can you speak a little bit to the phasing of the project? For the public's benefit, what does the scope of project look like in terms of phasing for the bids that were received?
So this is the first phase of the project. It is the most expensive phase because it moves our mechanic bays out there, shop sign facilities, a wash bay, things of that nature. But once this phase is completed, sort of a domino effect can take place after that, where we can get additional storage if needed on site, because it's a much larger site than where we're currently at. It's not sized to house every single piece of county equipment there. The long-term goal is to have some additional satellite shops built around the 4 corners of the county. The 2 bottom corners of the county still have pretty good facilities, but we'd be looking more to the northwest and northeast, where there's a heavier traffic, higher population. The satellite shops would consist of basically Morton-style buildings, so we're not looking at high-dollar buildings for those, just some insulated facilities for motor graders, which can run $300,000 plus, so it makes sense to get those out of the elements.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are in public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this matter, either online or in person?
I'm Skip Phillips, 1341 Bronx Street. I do have, just to make it easier for you, they're really bullet points rather than any length. Essentially, what I wanted to just add are the things that we found that were successes when we built Northern Warren Fire Department. One of the things, like you guys, we had to cut the budget as much as possible. What we did was we basically cut nearly all of the design features. It would have been a lot nicer building if we could have afforded it. The only feature that we left on the exterior is large overhangs. The benefit to those large overhangs are, one, when the snow sheds from the roof, it piles farther from the building, which then protects the building from having snow piled up against it, where you can get more rust and leaks. Number two, the overhangs also falling farther from the building, it makes it easier to remove the snow. Second, the insulation that we did has a very short payback term. So for a small investment to get a higher insulation, you're going to save a lot of heat. Our insulation in the Northern Warren Fire is 12 inches in the walls, 24 inches in the ceiling. Minimum for a house is to have R19, which is 6 inches in the walls and at least 12 in the attic. We exceeded those in both, of course. What happened by doing so, we have a building that's twice as large and we're paying half as much in utility bills. The next thing that we did, which also helped, was geothermal. The payback on geothermal isn't nearly as quick, but there is a reasonable payback on using geothermal for your heat source, let alone in the long term if gas and LP gas goes up, you have a more stable. Plus, in your site, you do have the ability to put in solar panels. Then the other thing that we did, and this helps a lot for employees, is we put in radiant heat in the floors so that when you open the doors coming in and out, as soon as you close the doors within 5 minutes, the building is back up to temperature and comfortable. Plus, in the winter, it's with that much mass, it's warm for the workers to work on, which gives you good heat retention. And in the summer, with that much mass, it's cooler to work. Then the last thing that we did, which was really helpful, was we put a sheet metal skin on the inside of the walls, which helped keep things cleaner and reduced rust on the exterior walls. I don't know how many of those you've included in the building, but I thought I would at least share with the successes that we've had.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any other comments from the room or online? Are there any comments from the board or questions from the board?
I think radiant heat was a bid alternative in the package.
Yeah, the in-floor heating is gonna be alternate number one, which our department's gonna recommend approval of that as well.
Okay.
Can either you or the
Address some of those.
architect, yeah, what does it look like for insulation?
And as far as protective barrier, he brought up, we have 5 foot high concrete as our protective barrier, and then the sheet metal starts from there. So that was a good comment. That's how we're going to protect against rust on that bottom part of the floor. I hope they're not spraying water on the sheet metal above that, and they're just using the concrete to rinse off things. So.
Good morning. Can you say your name, please?
Yes, I'm Phil Parrott with Shive Hattery. That's 4125 West Town Parkway, West Des Moines, Iowa. First of all, I listened to what Skip had to say. Skip and I used to work together way back in the days, just to let you know. We do have overhangs at the overhead doors. They are a steel beam that actually acts as an overhang and protection in case somebody comes in, as David calls it, with the bucket up. So that it doesn't hurt the building and just protects that. Insulation-wise, remember that we are primarily a tempered building. It's not heated to 70 degrees. The temperature's going to be ranging between 45 and 55. And therefore, getting payback on high insulation, it would be a little bit longer. We do have, I believe the exterior walls are somewhere in the neighborhood of the R19, following the state energy code. We do have insulated metal wall panels on the exterior, which does have a metal lining on the inside to keep things clean. And as Crystal mentioned, we do have alternate bid for the radiant heating. We did not pursue geothermal in our findings. That is something that in this type of building maybe wouldn't give you the payback that it would take in the maintenance part of it. Using radiant heating and then overhead heaters in the temperate areas works fine. We do have units in the office areas and in the break room areas. So.
Thank you. I know that it wasn't something that I've heard yet from our engineer, but I did hear it once from Skip, and I did notice and make a note that it wasn't allowable use under our ARPA funding. But I would like the county to at least explore the possibility of some solar panels. Certainly allowable, and I'm not saying that it would be a for sure yes, but I'd at least like to consider the numbers on it. So, might help with some future costs or offsets, and we'll see.
I'm getting solar panels on my house, so something to look into.
Now, good. Any other comments or questions? Or does the board have any general thoughts on it?
No, I'm good.
I'll speak briefly just from my own perspective. I'm really pleased that we're sort of finally moving forward with the shop site. When I got onto the board, it was one of those items that there just seemed like there was a lot of things that needed to be addressed. And the shop site in my mind was one of them. The county had already allocated a substantial amount of resources towards the paving of Nevada Street, the grading work, and as everyone has seen in the last 2 years especially, inflation is real. At one point, we heard rumors from the Federal Reserve that it might be transitory. They've since walked those statements back too. And so the reality is that when you're looking at a project or a large scale project such as this or the justice facility, it's not fun. It's not I get why people don't want to do these things because it costs money and resources. And so, you kind of, the proverbial can gets kicked down the road. And what that leaves you with is an increasing expense to get a project that you need done. For those that have not been to our current shop site, from the public or for the news, I would encourage you to go out there sometime. There's a real reason why we've been working on this for a while. But we've got a funding mechanism that works, and in my mind works, sort of a general loan from ourselves. Interest rates are still pretty low. And so I think that sort of the stars have aligned a bit on this. We've also phased the project, so there are additional phases for our secondary roads facility. But I sort of viewed it as if we don't get started on it, then when will they? And so, I'm excited to look at the bids and hear the recommendations from it. But I think it's in the realm of doable, and it's certainly needed in my mind. So those are my comments. With that, do we have a motion to exit our public hearing?
I'll make a motion to exit public hearing.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. All right, number 3 is consider bids and award contract for Warren County Secondary Roads Facility. And do we have Dave Davidson on the line today too, or no? We don't.
We have somebody on here that is a resident, so I don't know if that's him.
That's not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we received a total of 6 bids for this project. So for each bid, I'll go ahead and read the base bid, which covers everything but that underfloor radiant system heat. And so that'll be alternate number 1, that will be read after the base bid. So the first bid received, I'll go from high to low, is Carson Construction Company Incorporated at a base bid amount of $6,836,000 even. Alternate number 1, $155,000 even. Next, ATO Builders. Base bid $6,650,000 even. Alternate number 1, $115,600. The next one is Downing Construction Company Incorporated. Base bid of $6,622,000 even. And alternate number 1, $107,000. Then Jensen Builders Limited. Base bid $6,417,700. Alternate 1, $123,100.
Can you say that again? The 120.
$123,100.
Thank you.
No problem. Next is DDVI. Base bid $6,400,000 even. Alternate number 1, $110,000. And finally, Graphite Construction Group. Base bid $6,059,000. And alternate number 1, $122,000. And so with that, our department recommends awarding the contract to the apparent low bidder, Graphite Construction Group.
Thank you, David. Has the county had any experience with Graphite Construction Group, or has Shai worked with Graphite before?
Yes, we have worked with Graphite. It used to be called Roshan, and so they have done several of our projects. One of them that we're currently working with on them is the Ankeny Senior Center. And according to the project manager, they're doing a good job. There have been other projects in the past that had some issues, but they resolved them and we got things worked through. And we feel, Shive Hattery feels that they'll do a good job for you guys in the county and getting this project done.
Where are they located?
Grimes, I believe. Reason they have talked to them about their bid. They have several supervisors that live in this area, and they're going to be incorporating them on the project. And also, my understanding is one of their major subs, a concrete sub, is only 2 miles away from the site. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
All right, the board is to consider bids. We have a recommendation from the Secondary Roads Facility, Secondary Roads Department. What hasn't been discussed yet and what will still need to be addressed by the board is the actual format of the loan, the structure of the loan, interest rates. We can work up numbers with D.A. Davidson, and then the board also has to figure out what sort of contribution that we'll be requiring from the engineer's budget to address it. And then with respect what percentage of that will be sort of a deduct from the engineer's budget going forward. So just to keep that in mind. That's part of the reason why we're we did bond for this, is that we have other avenues to make it happen. But the board does need to be cognizant of a future work session where we really sit down with pen and paper with our fiduciary financial folks, as well as David's office, and get that part figured out. But with that, we do have a recommendation for acceptance of Graphite Construction's apparent low bid. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept Graphite Construction Group in the amount of $6,059,000, as well as the bid alternate number 1 in the amount of $122,000, and awards the associated contract to the same.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the board? I would just mention that I'm also in agreement with the bid alternative. I think that having radiant floor heat makes a whole lot of sense in a facility like this. It's more cost effective. I'm not a scientist, but I understand that heat rises, and if you're warming it from the floor, I think you get a little bit better bang for your buck. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Heater.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, David. I know that's been a long time coming. Thank you for your efforts on it, and we will schedule an additional meeting to work on the financial aspect of it, hopefully in short order. All right, with that, number 4 on our agenda today is, and thank you, Mr. Chair, is discuss Sheriff's Office Reserve Program and possible action. Morning, Joe.
Thank you for your time today. In our last meeting, we had discussed, and you guys had some questions on the reserve program. Reached out to some other agencies that have that. I think one question that wanted answered was potential insurance impacts to the county. Several agencies that I've spoke with that have an established reserve program said the only changes that they have seen in their insurance is basically it would be the same as adding an employee. Not so much for like benefits, but as far as like the liability aspect of it. So if you had, say, a department of 10 and you added 2, you'd be paying a rate of 12.
Any idea on the, I think it's nominal, but did they speak to sort of what that looks like in their respective county? Like,
As far as what they're...
a couple employees, what I don't see our budget. Do you know, Megan? I mean, minor would be my guess.
Say that again, what's the question?
The addition of, what the impact would be on the addition of, say, in this particular request, 4 additional people.
Just off the top of my mind, it's relatively negligible, but, okay.
And I can get, if the board would prefer, I guess I can reach out to our insurance company and get that, if they want actual hard numbers. I don't know.
How many folks were gonna be in the proposed reserve program?
Looking at initially at 4.
Can you go over the difference between a certified deputy and a reserve?
So a reserve would be, obviously certified, everybody's, I think, pretty up to speed on what that is. They're on county payroll, they have state certifications. In a reserve program, Iowa code establishes 80, what we call 80 block hours of training. It gives them training in legal, firearm usage, defensive tactics, things of that nature. We would plan to incorporate the training, the annual training that they receive with our deputies that we have now, so there would be no additional, you have 4 other people on site, but that's minimal. When what they would do is they don't have the full authority of a certified officer. They can, because they are certified in certain blocks, they can assist in certain avenues of the job, which would be beneficial to us when we get into our events, like was discussed in the previous meeting. The intention would be to have, utilize them in the major events like I talked about earlier in the previous meeting, and then as kind of our need or our desire to have out more officers here or there, it may be to where we transition into having more people, two-man cars if we have something going on that we know, which you'd actually have a full-time deputy that's on a regular patrol shift and then a certified get-in with.
What do you forecast is the overall cost of the reserve program?
I think once you mean to get it going, I guess I divide it up into
Once it gets up and going, what's the
the annual cost.
Just the annual operational cost of keeping the reserves in place?
I think by the time you figure in the occasional uniform replacement, you're going to have ammunition that we'd supply when we train. I think you're probably talking for $3,000 a year would be a rough guesstimate as far as, because they don't need a full set of uniforms like deputies have now. So that greatly reduces the cost. I mean, for what's asked or what I envision for it to be, a summer and a winter uniform I think would be appropriate, which is minimal cost compared to what we pay now. And comparing that to another deputy, what it takes to keep them equipped every year, I think for four of them, you're probably, I'd say $750 to $1,000 a piece, which equates to $3,500 to $4,000 roughly. Would be an estimate.
And that, what about their compensation?
So the compensation would be, I would set it up like what Marion County does, would be $1 a year, which is what we would pay them. $1 a year, which is what we would pay them. That's the way Marion County runs theirs. It's basically, it's a volunteer program. It's people that want to be involved in the office, and it is a good, occasionally you have people come through that are good candidates.
Do you have candidates now that would be?
We have gotten, we do have a number of resumes that we've received that we kind of just have in a folder, have collected.
For the uniforms and things you need to get this program up and running and keep it running, that's ARPA. Are you thinking ARPA on that?
We have that's where the initial request came from, yes. In the last week, kind of depending on the timing of it, I mean, I know the county has a lot going on, I get that. We have a opportunity now that might even be able to reduce that cost, but until a decision's made, whether we are or not, it's a very time sensitive, because the group that would like us to join with the potential for, they would like to start that training on January 29th, which puts a rush on things, and I get that. And if the board is not comfortable with moving at that speed, we absolutely are not obligated to that. But given the opportunity to reduce the cost, that's why I wanted to bring it before the board.
Because the cost is so low.
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned, that how we're gonna sustain this after the ARPA money runs out, but because the costs aren't what I thought they were gonna be.
I think it would be minimal.
Concerns.
If we, to throw out some situations, some scenarios, if we find to where we had an event where we needed to put a reserve in a car. Right now, we have currently maintained 2 spare cars. Now, these cars have well over 120,000 on them, but to drive to the balloon field and serve as traffic control, it's more than capable of doing. To patrol a fairground, to do a traffic control on any sort of it, it's more than capable of doing that. So there would be no cost as far as maintaining any additional vehicles. The only cost you would have would be just the equipment to annually train, which would be your ammunition, your OC spray, things of that, and the occasional uniform. And a uniform, shirt, pants, after you've bought all the leathers and everything else, you're $150. So.
Didn't you say something about they were utilized for like wedding, like private events?
So, no, I think I did speak about weddings. I would not utilize them for that. What I would do is, right now our deputies, our certified full-time deputies, are asked to man the events as well as pick up the off-duty that people come, and they're working every weekend. Even if it's a weekend off, or they're taking comp time for, 3 or 4 hours on a Friday night shift to go to try to provide another service to the county with our vendors that we have, with our venues, not vendors, but with our venues. I guess what I was trying to, there must have been some misunderstanding there, or miscommunication on my part. What I would like to do is, what that would do is it would alleviate the need to have 8 deputies out at the balloons, or 6 deputies at a Ragbri event, which would free up their ability, if they chose to provide security for the other venues. I guess is how I had no intentions of having a reserve work a wedding, or because what those venues ask for are full certified officers.
Okay.
So I apologize for that.
No, I was just looking at it from, would this be a revenue generating to have reserve officers, with the understanding they're reserve officers and not certified?
That's something that could be pursued.
Okay.
Right now,
I don't know.
yep,
I'm
no.
just asking.
We currently run any off-duty work we have. We currently run through the individual deputy, where a venue would reach out to us and we would put it out to the deputies. We have a rotation that we do off-duty work on as far as bidding, and if that deputy goes and works, that deputy is then paid, and they handle that on their own. Yep.
Thank you.
So you're seeking approval of a reserve program then? Right now?
If the board wants, but I understand too if there are concerns and questions, and the reason why is, like I said, with the grant that was proposed to us, it greatly reduces our cost.
With the understanding, Joe, that the ask, even without the grant, is relatively nominal.
Yeah.
And you're working with some other counties. There's a whole lot to like about this. There might be a few minor questions to work out, but generally, I'm really supportive of it. The only thing I'll say is I don't know as though we want to advertise a $1 a year position and then we'll work you up to make revenue for the county.
No, yeah.
Well,
We'll farm you out to every wedding in the county. They're gonna pay us, but you're gonna get $1.
It was my
I like the thought, but I don't know. I like making money too, but I don't think
it
that's
was
the
my
purpose.
misunderstanding.
No, you're good.
You're all about the dollars.
I know, but I think there's a lot to like here. We do have a few minor follow-up things, but I think that the delta on it, if you will, is gonna be, probably less than $12,000 or $15,000, and it might be much less than that. I think it's also allowable, and so I'm going to give you the green light from my perspective.
Yeah, me too.
Do we need to have an actual motion to enact a reserve program? We do. So I'll make a motion to enact a Warren County Sheriff's Office Reserve Program.
I'll see. Go ahead.
Second.
Time goes to Crystal. Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Heater.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye.
Thank you.
You bet. Number 5 on the agenda is discuss contractual agreement with ACH, that is the Advanced Correctional Help, and Warren County for jail medical services with possible action.
And I've got a handout here for the board.
I'll pass it down through you. Thank you.
What I've included in that is just the advanced correctional health, which we currently use now for our inmates. And then I've also included, because I know there was some discussion in previous meetings about bringing in out-of-county inmates. So I included the current memorandum of understanding that we have with Jasper County. Covers a lot more medical in that memorandum, but it also kind of lays out where, as we would approach it with other counties, if we were to house their inmates in the future, how we would approach, a very similar approach to how we would handle the medical and costs commonly incurred with housing inmates. The reason Lieutenant Burrows and I approached Advanced Correctional Healthcare several months ago to get a quote when we're going from our current contract up to what our jail is going to be rated for. You'll see kind of off in the upper right, you'll see an annual price and a monthly price, which kind of at first glance looks astronomical. We're going to be going from a monthly price of roughly $48.75 to just over $23,000. However, when you do the math, we're going from a contract where we currently pay for 17 inmates, and we're going to be going to a contract that covers the full scope of our jail. And Eric has been in touch a little more with ACH than I have, so correct me if I'm wrong on this. We're asking for a contract that covers what our jail can hold. If we're not holding 88 people every day, that cost come down. But as a county, we have to be prepared to know that this could be the cost if we're gonna house 88 of our own inmates. You know, currently, like I said, we run an average of about, well, the last couple months we've been really fortunate. We're in the 30s, low 40s, and you know, we have a contract that covers 17 inmates. When we do claims, some months it's barely over, some months we're breaking even, which kind of tells you the usage of it. I do not expect that we would use the full 276, but at the end of the day too, we have to be prepared to understand that that's what it could be. The reason we're asking for the consideration on this contract is in the last 3 months, due to inflation and other items, the contract price itself has went up about $8,000. And although we are not gonna open a jail until June, July, August, we understand that. If we wait until then to lock in, the price is only gonna go up. At least this way it guarantees us this price now. When I submitted to Megan rough budget numbers for the medical, it's a little higher than 376, and that covers, we still have to cover medication, we would still have to cover the occasional emergency room visit, which does happen. You get somebody that breaks a hand or an arm or something in custody, and we've got to take them to the doctor. Those costs are not going to be included in this, but I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence either, but that's things that you can't foresee.
If we adopt the contract with Advanced, when would we actually start paying the monthly price? Can we lock in before the facility opens, but not pay until the facility opens?
Yeah, it's my understanding at that point, we would set the date that the contract would, you know, we would obviously have to pick a month of like July 1st or August 1st. And then that's when we would start paying that. Because we're in the current contract now for the remainder of this fiscal year. So, but it could come down to where to say things speed up and we decide to open in May. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if that were the case, then we would have to reconsider, okay, do we wanna just kind of roll the dice on going over on our current contract, or do we wanna renegotiate with them to open it early? But that'd be a whole nother discussion.
So is this a annual contract, so these numbers are good from the day we start getting charged for 12 months, and then it gets renegotiated a year from now? Or
Yes,
not?
sir. Yes.
Okay. So what your point of locking into this could save us up to $8,000 a month.
If we would have done this 4 months ago.
So
Well,
it's already-
no, not 8, yeah, 8,000 a year, annually.
A year,
Not
okay.
monthly, yes.
Okay. Okay. So is this prorated, this contract be prorated to how many inmates are in our jail on a given day? When you say it may not be this much, how is it calculated how much it will be?
So it's-
Is it based on the number of
Yep,
inmates?
it's a per diem.
Right, so if we had 60 inmates, they're billing us for 88. You would take the 28 inmates that we don't have, they would take it time that per diem rate of 48 cents per day. Every quarter, every 90 days, you would get a check back or a cut back in your costs from ACH. They do that for us now, however, we're way over 17. We haven't been at 17.
We don't get a refund.
No, exactly.
Here's a follow-up question, and I understand how that works, but you're pitching a worst-case scenario, which I appreciate. I think that you have to look at budgets and contracts and new hires and everything else, and what is the maximum this might run for a 12-month period. I think that's just the way to do it. Here's my question. This is rolling with an 88 county, 0 non-county. So
Correct.
I appreciate that you included an MOU with Jasper County for how we negotiate with them for our current situation. But let's say that it's just right down the middle, half, 44 Warren County inmates, 44 other, Polk, probably not Jasper, but Marion or whoever. How does that per diem day that we are charging to house them, is that anticipated to sort of offset their health cost, or are they paying their own respective health costs?
They're paying their own respective health costs. The only thing that we would absorb, and I think this would just be out of courtesy to who we're housing for, if we have somebody in custody, we need to take them to Des Moines to the hospital. We can have a deputy escort them up, and the sheriff's office would just eat that wage, that hourly wage, until they can get it, and we may give them a 2-hour window. Jasper County currently gives us a 4-hour window. But they get billed for all of their prescriptions, for all of their medical care, whether it be routine care, whether it be emergency care. On occasion, mishaps happen, and people in business understand that. On occasion, we have had an additional bill come over from Marion County or from Jasper County where one of our inmates got rolled over into theirs. So a month or two later, they figured it out. We then pay that difference.
So towards the actual monthly price of $23,000, if it's half Warren, half other, am I correct to assume that you can effectively take half of the monthly price for the advanced correctional contract? And
Correct, absolutely. And as I said, I don't anticipate that our annual would run that much. I just want the board to understand that we have to be prepared to pay that if worst case. So if it wanted to be something to where, as we sign the contract and when you get into actual budget allocation, we just need to understand that maybe towards the end of the year we may have to supplement that line item.
amended, sure. Okay. Well, I think the path is pretty clear.
And
The best way for Warren County to come out on the winning end of this is to have a county population of not to exceed 30 inmates and to make hay from other counties and let them pay the bill. So don't commit crime if you live here in Warren County. But my last question is, are there any other providers out there? Have you shopped around, or have you worked with True North to see if there are any others, or is this just sort of the state go-to? I just don't know.
we haven't shopped around, and speaking with many other agencies who have had other providers, they've all recommended ACH. We're currently with ACH. We're happy with what they do. So I can, if the board would prefer.
I mean, it's always my preference to at least do a bit of due diligence there and see if there's another solid provider, but I guess that would be my preference.
When you spoke to other sheriffs, have they talked about other companies that provide this service, or, I mean, do you even know of another company that provides this service?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall what other companies they had used in the past, but everybody has come, just about everybody that we spoke with has come to ACH. You get a reduced rate on care, you get a reduced rate on medicines provided, daily prescriptions provided.
Do they have staff that come into our jail?
Yes.
So
Yep.
there's gonna be nursing staff and that's a service that, you wanna go to a company that can provide that at a high level.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you've done your due diligence around how that works and that.
And a lot
the
is-
service is good.
The more you can provide in-house on a contract, the less you're probably gonna have to provide at an emergency room. So,
It's quite a difference in what we were paying for our 17 cell jail, isn't it?
it is, but I will say this, if you do the math, obviously taking 17 into 88, it's just over 5 times. If you take the 5.17 times our current rate, by going with 88, we're actually even reducing our,
Per inmate.
yeah, you're reducing it by almost $2,000. Now granted, you're spending more, but what I'm saying is when you prorate it, we're actually reducing our per inmate cost. But you're right, that's the difference in a 17-bed jail and an 80-plus bed jail.
What is your time urgency? Like, when do you have a date you need to lock this in?
We have 90 days And I think we're still within our
Says on
first,
here 60.
or 60, okay, first one was 90.
Okay.
60 days from the date,
Okay.
at the top, which was 12/17/20.
So, yep.
On this new quote.
February.
So roughly, yeah.
The only thing I would be, I'm good with this. I'm good with this, and I think you have a lot on your plate in the next 3 to 4 months, so to make this decision and get it behind you, maybe the benefit, and knowing that, you have talked to other sheriffs, and you believe this to be the highest level of service and a competitive cost. I'm good with this. Just to get this decision made and get on to the rest, the functioning of everything else you have to do in the next 4 to 5 months to get the jail up and running. That's my opinion.
We have had some, I remember an inmate that had substantial medical costs, and this would definitely keep us on a budget,
Yeah, it would help.
yeah. So I'm for it.
And we've had other counties that have been happy enough with them, two other counties that I've talked with that are actually increasing their level of care this year, simply because like if you'll see, when you get down to nursing, this contract would give us 30 hours per week. We know a couple counties that are stepping up to the next level, which I believe is 40 hours a week, just because they're that happy with it, and they have seen an overall reduction in cost by having a nurse on site versus having to travel to the hospital on a Saturday or a Tuesday night.
Just to give you an idea, the cost of going 40 hours was just over 300,000. If I remember right, I got that, I can get that to you if you'd like. If we had to increase our nurse on staff, on scene to 40 hours, we can do that.
And these are jails that are going to that are a little larger than us, not substantially larger, but a little larger. So that's where I think maybe the additional 10 hours helps them and
Well, like I said, it would be my preference to at least see what else is out there, but if you're going to tell me that the other sheriffs and jail facilities that you've spoken with are all on board with advanced, and because we currently are with them, and because we currently, it seems to me, are getting quite the deal. Yeah, I think for efficiency's sake, I'm fine with it too. Maybe one last thing to address. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the agreement with ACH, which is Advanced Correctional Health, and Warren County for the jail medical services.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Joe.
Chair, can we go back to the reserve program for just a second?
yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
I have a question about a comment you made. It says that you now allow deputies to use comp time, and so if they're contracted out. So are those deputies making, they make money off duty and then come back to work the rest of their shift?
So what we allow is say you have a deputy that's scheduled 6 p.m. to 3 a.m., which would be a current shift. And there is a venue, that is asking for, say, 8 to 11. Their time off is their time off. It's whether they take vacation or comp time. We allow them time off if they request it, and it's always been, dating back several years, it's always been, what they do on their, barring illegal activities, I guess, but what I'm saying is, their time off is their time off. So we would allow them to comp off from 6 to midnight, and then they come and work their midnight to 3 shift. And then we'll, with other deputies, whether we bump schedules or fill that shift. Yep, we do allow that, yep.
Okay. Looks like our last action item is number 6, and for the beginning of the meeting, I was debating between pulling number 6 and or changing number 6. We ultimately decided to change it, and just, it now reads, consider dispatch supervisor discussion only. So, and the reason for that is if the board does decide to move forward with the dispatch supervisor, that is a position which we would post for. And it would certainly be open to anyone to apply for that position. But I would like to hear your thoughts as the sheriff and the board regarding the necessity of a dispatch supervisor. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay. With bringing on 3 additional dispatchers, with moving to the new facility, increasing the size of the jail, whether we move to a civilian dispatch spot, a certified dispatch spot, as different communication centers do, adding that spot I think would be beneficial. It's especially as we begin to get into the new radio system. Even now, dispatchers are starting to get used to that, but it's kind of a retraining for officers as well as dispatchers on how the new radio system is used. So it would definitely have its benefit.
I think you're gonna find consensus from the board that a dispatch supervisor is something that I think the board wants to move forward with as well. So to that effect, if we could get a position posted, I'd like to have that happen this week. And then we'll look at who applies and go from there. Does that seem fair? Okay. With that, thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
With that, it doesn't look like the agenda looks a little different, but with that, I'll open it up to the supervisors. If you have any thoughts, statements, activities, feel free to discuss. I'll keep mine, it's a little different format. I just want the board to be aware that we've got a couple things that I think need to happen for scheduling purposes, since Megan and Chelsea are both here. Please take note. One, we sort of addressed it a little bit with the secondary roads project, but I would like to get D.A. Davidson, our engineer, and our board together for a work session regarding the finances of it. I think that's important. And I think that the sooner that the board can come together and at least get a majority, preferably all of us, sort of on the same page with respect to here's what's coming out of engineers reserve fund to go towards the project. Here's what the annual payment looks like, structured a 10-year note, a 15-year note, and a 20-year note. Here's what I would anticipate the engineers department would pay towards that annual payment. Here's what the board would pay or shift into that. I think that that's important to actually do that sooner rather than later. Second meeting, or it can be after. We are overdue for a department heads meeting, so I'd like to get that scheduled by no later than next week. And then the third one is I'd like to get back on the saddle, if you would, with respect to round 1 ARPA funding, the maybes. I just don't want to have too much time go by where we've heard a presentation or we've reviewed an application. I personally need to get my head wrapped around the number of what realistically from the maybe bucket round 1 is going to be a yes, what's going to be a no, what's going to be a deferred maybe until everything else comes in. But I think that's important. I think that there's some of that, some of those requests, I know that we can pare it down pretty substantially, but at least maybe a third off of it. But I'd like to do that sooner rather than later so that we can know what's been allocated from round 1 funding, know what's coming up, because it won't be too much longer until the public will be coming as well. And I think that the board needs to have a pretty good grasp, at least as far as what's been allocated from round 1 funding. The last comment that I'll make is just sort of a kudos to our attorney's office, and Don specifically, as well as Doug, regarding the opioid settlement. And I know that that might not have been, that's That's probably not the hardest thing that they've ever done, but I think it's really important. I think that there's going to be a little north of $1 million that will come to the county in April and May of this year, and then an annual contribution from that settlement over a 10-year period of time. I think that actually has some real benefit. I don't know what's allowable to use those funds on, but I know that our inmates that will be coming this summer, that some of those folks probably could have some drug cessation programs. There might be something that the board could do as far as drug court, and there might be something that we can consider as far as drug task force in the county as a funding mechanism, because I know that we've discussed that. I don't remember if we said yes to the drug task force. Did we say yes, or was that a maybe?
Yes.
You said yes.
So we have some funding for the Warren County Drug Task Force to start. But at one point, and I told the board this too, I'm a little more hesitant to use one-time ARPA money for things that are gonna have reoccurring expenses, because at some point, the bill comes due.
Right.
And the federal dollars aren't there. And that to me means it either comes from a cut of another service or it comes in the form of a tax hike. Either one of those is very palatable. And so I'm more inclined to look at additional revenue sources. And if the opioid settlement money, which 10 years helps fund a drug task force in the county, I would tell you that I think that's probably a good idea. So, thank you for that, Don and Doug and anyone that are part of that, but I think that's, we'll be well served. So that's just my general thoughts.
Here, I think that's a good immediate list of things we should be addressing. I think you nailed that. We need to get on those 3 items in short order. So I also just wanted to make some comments about just what's going on in the county. I think there's a lot of positive things. Aaron had kind of made a comment last week that he feels like we're gelling as a board, and we're starting to it's starting to feel good about our alignment, and I just, I appreciate what we're doing. When we went through the ARPA process, I think we kind of agreed on just about everything. I think generally our board does agree on what we want to do, and we share the same philosophies and concepts. Sometimes we get hung up a little bit on how we get from point A to point B, and I'll bring up dispatch. It was really Crystal that had driven a need to increase our level of service in dispatch and increase our culture in dispatch, and she saw a need, and it was a big need, and she pushed, and this year we've increased the staff by 3 because of your voice, and now we're looking at management. So eventually we'll get to the training and the culture change and things that you had addressed early on, several years ago. So we all kind of want that, we all agree that that's where we need to go. And we have a little hiccup on how we get there, but ultimately we agree, and, hope, maybe we'll see a big beneficial outcome there, and maybe we won't. But I think it's important to recognize that we do align in what we're, the engineering building. That's a big accomplishment, and we all agreed, that something had to be done. And it's, it's kudos to the board. I think about, the streets are 50% of, or the rural roads are 50% of our budget, and we got a great engineer, we've got a great program. And when I came to the board, people were saying, oh, you're gonna hate the complaints on the roads, and you're gonna hate, that's just gonna be a huge problem. We got 880 miles of gravel roads, and we can't ever get those maintained at a level that our public deserves. It's just cost prohibitive. But in the year I've been here, I've only received 3 complaints on the roads, and 2 of them were from the same person. And so that's a big deal. And when the previous board when these two board members and Doug Scholl decided to bring belly dumps in and put in some equipment that would allow us to get the gravel to the places it needed to be in a quicker way. We could control our own destiny. We could make those decisions and respond quicker for our public. Those are big things, and those are good things, and we all agree on that. We want to increase the level of service. And I would say we are increasing the level of service. I'd say we do have a lot of really good things. So we got dispatch moving in the right direction, maybe a little hiccup on how, but maybe we'll change that, you know, if we figure out we need to. This board has done a good job of being proactive. We've done a good job of being out in front of things. When Meg and Andrew left us 8 or 9 months ago, it was like, what are we gonna do? How are things gonna get done? And this board put people in place, talented people that are picking up the pieces and that are figuring it out. And that hasn't been easy. You know, the Justice Center is a $38 million project that there's a lot of issues with it every single day. But this board, because we're doing work sessions now, the increase in communication, I think, is good. We are communicating. We are bouncing things off each other. We are figuring out what the implications to our decisions are. And I see a lot of positives in that. I think that we are doing a good job. This 3-member board thing is hard. You know, there's 3 people that can't talk to each other except in a public meeting, and it's really hard to know where people stand. It's really hard to understand where we're going as a county. It's hard to figure out what do we want to be. You know, we're growing like crazy in Warren County, and to keep up with that growth is hard, and it takes communication, it takes planning, and I'm seeing that going in the right direction. You know, I think we've got good leadership in our county. I think our electeds, I want to also give kudos to the attorney. The attorney has dedicated pretty much Dawn to our board structure. She helps us write a resolution. She helps us figure out how to make decisions. She keeps us within the Iowa code. When I first got here, Dawn was following me around everywhere I went for about 2 months because I was new and I didn't know the rules. I was going to Crystal's office saying, "Hey, Crystal, what do you think of?" And Dawn would be there, no, you can't ask Crystal what she thinks. You know, the attorney's office has stepped in to keep us on the straight and narrow. They have dedicated staff to the Warren County Justice Center. They have, they're stepping up in a big way. I mean, Doug Eichholz is in the middle of the Justice Center. He's got a stack of drawings in his office. He's got the contract in his office. Whenever there's an issue on where things are at over there and what needs to happen, he's all over that. And, you know, I don't know if that's the role of a county attorney, but I've leaned on him, and he is given us all the support we could possibly ask for. We've got a dispute meeting next week with one of the subcontractors, and Doug's helping us. We've had contract, issues that he helps us through. And so, you got Dave Carroll, you got Joe Carrico, you got Doug Eichholz, Tracy Vanderlinden, Holly Wright, Julie Doherty. We're lucky to have these people here. They do a good job. Julie's putting technology in to increase her level of service. She's buying software, she's figuring out how to do things quicker, she's efficiency minded, and our challenge next year is we're gonna lose 2, maybe 3, maybe more icons. Our public health director is gonna be retiring. Our recorder's gonna be going someplace. And these are gonna be holes for 2022 that, we'll have to be aware of. In 2022, we're gonna be moving in and making the Justice Center functional. We're gonna be building a new engineering building. We're gonna be hopefully putting some leadership in at dispatch. We're gonna have a new board of assistant, that we're gonna be filling that position. And I would say to the board that I hope there's a business element to that position. I hope that person has, can do some cost benefit analysis and can lay out some different, help us with data, help us with strategic planning, be right in the mix on everything that we're doing all the time, attend all our meetings. I think we've got an affordable housing issue in Warren County that we need to address in 2022. We've got some facility realignment thing that we have to get our hands around. We're gonna be negotiating leases, maybe buying buildings, maybe letting some leases go for a fee. And how all that's gonna fit together is something that is a challenge for us. Budget, think about how our budget's changing from 21 to 22 to 23. I mean, just think of the new Justice Center and the new health and the maintenance, the boiler in this building and all the things that are gonna change. I mean, the next couple months are gonna be really interesting on how all this ties together. The Liberty Center deal, the Greenfield Township, improvements, those are all things that, I'm, interested to see how we can solve some of these problems. The new drug task force, I'm really excited about that. Maybe we can keep illegal drugs out of our county or eliminate them as much as we can. I get excited about that. So, and just in closing, I wanna thank my wife because she listens to my BS all day long on this stuff. Like I go home and I've got a lot on my mind and I just let her have it and she listens and keeps me grounded and I just want to thank her for her support and that's my report.
Wow, I was not prepared for any of this, so. It said no report, so I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Crystal. I didn't see that it said that. You don't have to.
I mostly just wanted to mention the 3 meetings that we needed to do and give a brief statement. You
Don't
take
feel
it out.
Don't feel obligated.
I think that in we got an email that said in the Independent Advocate that we were going to continue looking at the ARPA funds, our maybes for project funding decision was tentatively scheduled for Friday, January 7th. So. I don't know if we can all make it Friday or not, but.
What time?
I can't do it in the morning, but I can do it, oh wait, yeah, I can, it says Friday.
We might have to break it up into a couple I mean, there's a lot in that maybe bucket. I don't know if trying to corral the applicants as well as the 3 board members all into one setting is gonna make sense, but I'm happy to start it on Friday. I just wanna make sure that we keep moving maybes into yeses or nos or no for now, and in a year from now we can relook at it. I mean, that's, otherwise there's only so much dollars and I need to sort of know, especially for economic development purposes, what we have remaining and what other ones are coming to the community.
Just so the board is aware, there's a special meeting on Friday at 1 o'clock, and it's scheduled for you all to deal with the redistricting proposal.
That's right.
So if you want to have a meeting after that, or if you want to continue a meeting and talk about some other issues, you certainly can.
I think we maybe tackle a good handful of the maybe bucket after that meeting. I don't think that meeting's gonna go very long. It's just one issue. All right, well, it's a new year, a little reflection doesn't hurt. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
DeCook?
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time.